The scorching summer sun beat down on the small suburban neighborhood as 10-year-old Emma set up her lemonade stand on the sidewalk, her infectious grin radiating with excitement. This was her chance to earn some extra pocket money and prove her entrepreneurial spirit. But as she began pouring cold cups of lemonade, a dark shadow loomed overhead. Emma looked up to see Mrs. Wilkins, the stern-faced president of the Homeowners Association, glaring down at her stand. "Young lady, you're in violation of the neighborhood bylaws," Mrs. Wilkins declared, her voice dripping with disdain. "Unlicensed businesses are strictly prohibited. You're to shut this down immediately." Emma's heart sank. But I'm just trying to make a little money. Can't I keep it open?" she pleaded, her eyes welling with tears. Mrs. Wilkins scoffed. "Absolutely not. Take it down, or we'll have it removed." With that, she turned on her heel and marched away, leaving Emma devastated and alone. Determined not to give up, Emma ran inside to tell her parents. Her father, Jeff, listened intently, his brow furrowing with concern. "That's not right, sweetheart. You have every right to run your own lemonade stand." He grabbed his car keys and stormed outside, confronting the uncompromising Mrs. Wilkins. "This is outrageous. Emma is just a kid trying to earn some pocket money. You can't shut her down like this." Mrs. Wilkins narrowed her eyes. "I'm simply enforcing the rules, Mr. Davis. Your daughter is operating an illegal business on our neighborhood property. If you don't remove that stand immediately, I'll have it confiscated." Jeff stood his ground. "I don't care." The following morning, a process server arrived at the Davis family's doorstep, a thick envelope in hand. Jeff's heart sank as he read the contents: a cease and desist order from the HOA, threatening legal action if Emma's lemonade stand was not immediately shut down. "This is unbelievable." Jeff fumed, slamming his fist on the kitchen counter. "They're actually suing us over a little girl's lemonade stand. We have to fight this." Emma watched with worry as her father paced the room, his brow furrowed in deep thought. "What are we going to do, Dad?" she asked, her voice small and uncertain. Jeff placed a comforting hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Don't worry, sweetheart. We're not going to let them bully you. We're going to stand up to these HOA bullies and show them that they can't trample all over our rights." Filled with newfound determination, Jeff made a series of phone calls, reaching out to local news outlets and civil liberty organizations. Within a day, the story of the Davis family's lemonade stand clash with the HOA had gone viral, sparking outrage across the community. As reporters descended on the neighborhood, Mrs. Wilkins found herself facing a barrage of questions and negative publicity. Cornered, she reluctantly agreed to meet with Jeff and Emma to discuss a resolution. The tense meeting took place in the Davis family's living room, with Mrs. Wilkins sitting across from Jeff, her expression unyielding. "Mr. Davis, I hope you understand that we have no choice but to enforce our bylaws. This lemonade stand is an illegal business operation, and we simply cannot allow it to continue." Jeff leaned forward, his eyes narrowed. "Mrs. Wilkins, this is my daughter's entrepreneurial endeavor, not a commercial venture. She's just a child trying to earn some pocket money. Surely you can make an exception in this case." Mrs. Wilkins shook her head firmly. "I'm afraid that's not possible. The rules are the rules, and they apply to everyone equally. If we make an exception for your daughter, it would set a dangerous precedent." The tension in the room was palpable as the two adults faced off, neither willing to back down. Emma watched anxiously, her heart pounding, as the fate of her beloved lemonade stand hung in the balance. As the heated discussion continued, Emma's eyes darted back and forth between her father and Mrs. Wilkins, her stomach twisting with worry. She couldn't bear the thought of losing her lemonade stand, a project she had poured her heart and soul into. Suddenly, an idea struck her. Gathering her courage, she spoke up, her voice shaking slightly. "Mrs. Wilkins, what if I donated all the money I make to charity? Would that be okay?" The room fell silent as both Jeff and Mrs. Wilkins turned their attention to the young girl. Jeff's eyes widened with surprise, while Mrs. Wilkins' expression softened ever so slightly. After a moment of contemplation, Mrs. Wilkins replied, "Well, that's an interesting proposal, Emma. I suppose if the proceeds were to go to a recognized charitable organization, that might be a reasonable compromise." Emma's face lit up with hope, and she glanced hopefully at her father. Jeff couldn't help but smile, proud of his daughter's quick thinking and willingness to find a solution. "That sounds like a fair arrangement," Jeff agreed, his tone cautiously optimistic. "Emma would be more than happy to donate all the money she earns to a local children's charity. Wouldn't you, sweetheart?" Emma nodded vigorously, her pigtails bouncing. Yes, of course. I want to help other kids, not just make money for myself." Mrs. Wilkins considered the proposal for a moment, her brow furrowed in thought. Finally, she let out a deep sigh and said, "Very well. I suppose we can allow the lemonade stand to continue as long as the proceeds are donated to a reputable charity." A wave of relief washed over Emma, and she couldn't contain her excitement. "Thank you, Mrs. Wilkins. You won't regret this, I promise." She beamed up at her father, who squeezed her shoulder affectionately. As Mrs. Wilkins prepared to leave, Jeff asked, "So, we have an agreement then. Emma can keep her lemonade stand open, and all the profits will go to charity." Mrs. Wilkins nodded reluctantly. "Yes, that's the deal. But I want regular updates on the donations and any sign of improper business activities, and the stand will be shut down immediately." "Understood." "Absolutely," Jeff replied, shaking Mrs. Wilkins' hand firmly. "Thank you for being reasonable. Emma and I appreciate your willingness to compromise." As the Homeowners Association president departed, Emma and Jeff exchanged a relieved glance, already planning their next steps to make the lemonade stand a roaring success. With the HOA's compromise in place, Emma's lemonade stand was back in business, and the young entrepreneur was more determined than ever to make it a success. She worked tirelessly, whipping up fresh batches of lemonade and greeting every customer with her trademark warm smile. Word of Emma's charitable endeavor quickly spread through the neighborhood, and soon a steady stream of locals were flocking to her stand to purchase a refreshing cup. Jeff beamed with pride as he watched his daughter's enterprise flourish, her enthusiasm and entrepreneurial spirit shining through. However, Mrs. Wilkins and the HOA were not entirely satisfied with the arrangement. They kept a close eye on the lemonade stand, monitoring the operation for any sign of wrongdoing. Whenever Jeff or Emma provided an update on the donations, Mrs. Wilkins would scrutinize the numbers, searching for any discrepancies. One particularly hot afternoon, as Emma was in the midst of a brisk business, Mrs. Wilkins appeared at the stand, her arms crossed sternly over her chest. "Young lady, I need to see your donation records immediately," she demanded, her tone leaving no room for argument. Emma's heart sank, and she shot a worried glance at her father, who quickly stepped forward to intervene. "Mrs. Wilkins, we've been fully transparent about the donations. Emma has been keeping meticulous records, and we're happy to share them with you." Reluctantly, Emma handed over the neatly organized ledger, her hands trembling slightly. Mrs. Wilkins pored over the pages, her eyes narrowing as she examined each entry. After several agonizing minutes, she let out a frustrated sigh. "Well, everything seems to be in order. I suppose I'll have to take your word for it." Jeff let out a relieved breath, but the tension in the air was palpable. "We're doing our best to be responsible and honest, Mrs. Wilkins. Emma is really proud of her efforts, and we're grateful for your willingness to compromise." Mrs. Wilkins pursed her lips, clearly still unconvinced. "Yes, well, let's hope it stays that way. I'll be checking in regularly to ensure the donations are being properly handled." With that, she turned on her heel and strode away, leaving Emma and Jeff feeling uneasy. They knew that the HOA president would be watching their every move, ready to pounce at the slightest misstep. As the days passed, Emma's lemonade stand continued to thrive, with a steady stream of customers eager to support her charitable cause. The young entrepreneur took great pride in her work, meticulously tracking every sale and donation in her ledger. However, Mrs. Wilkins and the HOA remained skeptical, frequently stopping by to scrutinize the operation. Emma and Jeff felt like they were constantly under the watchful eye of the HOA, the tension palpable with each visit. One particularly hot afternoon, as Emma was busy serving customers, Mrs. Wilkins arrived unannounced, her expression stern. "I need to speak with you and your father, young lady," she demanded, her gaze fixed on Emma. Emma's heart raced as she gestured for her father to join them. Jeff hurried over, his brow furrowed with concern. "What's going on, Mrs. Wilkins?" he asked, his voice tense. "I've been reviewing the donation records, and I'm not satisfied," Mrs. Wilkins declared, her lips pursed in a disapproving frown. "The numbers simply don't add up. I believe you may be pocketing some of the profits for yourselves." Emma's eyes widened in shock, and she shook her head vehemently. "No, that's not true. I've been keeping track of everything, just like you asked. I would never do that." Jeff placed a reassuring hand on his daughter's shoulder, his expression unwavering. "Mrs. Wilkins, I can assure you that Emma has been completely honest and transparent about the donations. We have nothing to hide." But Mrs. Wilkins remained unconvinced. "I'm sorry, but I'm not convinced. I have no choice but to shut down this lemonade stand immediately." Emma's face crumpled, and tears began to stream down her cheeks. "No, please. I've worked so hard, and I'm doing it all for charity. You can't do this." Jeff stepped forward, his voice firm. "This is outrageous, Mrs. Wilkins. You have no evidence of any wrongdoing, and you're punishing a child for your own unfounded suspicions. We won't let you do this." The tension between the two adults was palpable, as they stood their ground, unwilling to back down. Emma watched, her heart racing, as the fate of her beloved lemonade stand hung in the balance. The standoff between the Davis family and Mrs. Wilkins continued to escalate, with both sides refusing to budge. Emma's eyes were red from crying, and she clung to her father's arm, terrified of losing her lemonade stand. "This is completely unacceptable, Mrs. Wilkins," Jeff said, his voice laced with frustration. "You're punishing my daughter based on nothing more than your own suspicions. We've been fully transparent and have done nothing wrong." Mrs. Wilkins' expression remained stern and unyielding. "I'm sorry, but I can't take that risk. The HOA bylaws are clear, and I had a responsibility to enforce them. This lemonade stand is in violation, and it must be shut down immediately." Seeing his daughter's devastated face, Jeff knew he had to take a stand. "Well, I'm not going to let you do that. Emma has put her heart and soul into this, and she's doing it all for charity. You're not taking that away from her." He turned to Emma, his voice softening. "Sweetheart, I need you to go inside and call Aunt Sarah. Tell her what's happening and ask her to come over right away, okay?" Emma nodded, her lips trembling. "Okay, Daddy." She hurried off, leaving Jeff to face Mrs. Wilkins alone. "What is the meaning of this, Mr. Davis?" the HOA president demanded. "Are you defying the HOA's orders?" Jeff stood his ground, his expression resolute. "Yes, I am. I'm not going to let you bully my daughter and shut down her charitable lemonade stand. This is wrong, and I'm going to fight it with everything I've got." Mrs. Wilkins' eyes narrowed, and she pulled out her phone. "Well then, I have no choice but to call the police. You're interfering with an HOA directive, and that's a violation of the law." Jeff's heart raced, but he refused to back down. "Go ahead, call the police. I'm not moving an inch until you leave my daughter alone." The tense standoff continued, with neither side willing to give in. Emma watched anxiously from the window, her fingers crossed, praying that her father would prevail. Suddenly, The sound of a car pulling up in the driveway broke the silence. Emma's Aunt Sarah had arrived, and she was not happy. As Aunt Sarah strode up the driveway, her face etched with determination, Mrs. Wilkins hesitated, her hand still gripping her phone. "What's going on here?" Aunt Sarah demanded, her gaze darting between the HOA president and Jeff. "Your brother-in-law is refusing to comply with the HOA's order to shut down his daughter's illegal lemonade stand," Mrs. Wilkins replied, her voice laced with authority. Aunt Sarah's eyes narrowed, and she turned to Jeff. "Is this true?" she asked, her tone unwavering. Jeff nodded firmly. "Yes, it's true. Emma has been running the stand as a charitable endeavor, and I'm not going to let the HOA bully her into shutting it down based on nothing more than unfounded suspicions." Aunt Sarah's expression softened, and she placed a hand on Jeff's arm. "Well then, I'm here to help. Let's see if we can't find a reasonable solution to this situation." Turning to Mrs. Wilkins, Aunt Sarah's tone grew more authoritative. "Now, Mrs. Wilkins, I understand that you have concerns about the financial records, but shutting down a child's charitable lemonade stand hardly seems like the appropriate course of action." Mrs. Wilkins opened her mouth to protest, but Aunt Sarah raised a hand to silence her. "Instead of escalating this conflict, why don't we work together to find a solution that satisfies everyone? Perhaps we could have an independent third-party audit the financial records to ensure everything is above board." The HOA president hesitated, her brow furrowed in thought. "Well, I suppose that could be a reasonable compromise," she admitted reluctantly. Seizing the opportunity, Jeff spoke up. "That sounds like a fair idea. We're more than happy to cooperate with an independent audit to prove that Emma has been completely honest and transparent." Mrs. Wilkins nodded slowly, her expression softening ever so slightly. "Very well then. I'll make the necessary arrangements." As the tension in the air began to dissipate, Aunt Sarah turned to Emma, who had emerged from the house, her eyes still glistening with tears. There, sweetheart," Aunt Sarah said, wrapping her in a warm embrace. "Everything's going to be just fine." Emma sniffled, her grip tightening around her aunt. "You really think so, Aunt Sarah?" Aunt Sarah smiled reassuringly. "I know so. We're going to get to the bottom of this, and your lemonade stand is going to be up and running again in no time." In the days that followed, an independent auditor was brought in to thoroughly examine the financial records of Emma's lemonade stand. Despite Mrs. Wilkins' initial skepticism, the audit revealed that every penny earned had been meticulously accounted for and donated to the local children's charity, just as Emma had promised. With the investigation complete and the records verified, Mrs. Wilkins had no choice but to concede defeat. Grudgingly, she approached the Davis family and delivered the news. "Well, it seems the financial records are in order," she admitted, her tone laced with begrudging respect. "I suppose I have no choice but to allow your daughter's lemonade stand to continue operating." Emma's face lit up with joy, and she couldn't contain her excitement. "Really? You mean it?" she exclaimed, bouncing on the balls of her feet. Mrs. Wilkins nodded stiffly. "Yes, it's clear that you and your family have been completely honest and transparent throughout this process. I have to commend you for your commitment to the community and your charitable endeavors." Jeff couldn't help but smile, pride swelling in his chest. "Thank you, Mrs. Wilkins. We really appreciate your willingness to work with us and find a reasonable solution." Aunt Sarah stepped forward, her expression warm. "And we want to thank you for your time and effort in ensuring the integrity of this operation. I'm sure Emma will continue to do an excellent job with her lemonade stand and the charitable donations." Emma beamed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Oh, I will, Aunt Sarah. I promise to keep everything in perfect order, and I'm going to work even harder to raise as much money as I can for the kids." With the crisis averted, the Davis family and Mrs. Wilkins parted ways, their once tense relationship now tinged with a newfound respect. Emma's lemonade stand continued to thrive, attracting more and more customers eager to support her charitable cause. In the end, the story of the determined young entrepreneur and her battle against the overbearing HOA had become a source of inspiration for the entire community, reminding everyone that with courage, determination, and a little help from their loved ones, even the smallest of dreams can blossom into something truly remarkable.